welcome to the debate. I'm your host, Maqbool, with you at PTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at two important stories. The first is in reference to what is going on in Gaza and, of course, the international debate around what is the future of the people of Palestine. And this is, of course, coming in from various statements with, of course, the US President Donald Trump also speaking in this regard. And then, of course, the Israeli Prime Minister also speaking. We've heard Mr. Trump talk about owning and taking over Gaza. He's also very categorically mentioned a plan of action in order to do that, in which he plans to rebuild Gaza and take ownership of the land, and has also said that there may be involvement of other Middle Eastern countries who can actually contribute towards the rebuilding of Gaza, and that there will be a repatriation or a resettlement of the people of Palestine elsewhere. And this is, of course, something that is contrary to international laws and norms, and the UN has also seriously said that any forced displacement of the people will be counter to the international laws and will be a violation of that. But what will, of course, this be in terms of the future it holds, in terms of what the countries will actually do or what the UN might actually do about it, when we have the US president actually coming forward with such a statement. At the same time, this has been welcomed by the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, where he speaks about how this is a profound step forward and a plan of action that has been given by Mr. Trump as to be a very, very important aspect of the way forward for Gaza and the people of Palestine. At the same time, he's also spoken about how the Palestinian people should go and form a state within Saudi Arabia, and this is coming in, of course, also in terms of the aftermath of the kind of condemnation objection that has been put forward to this particular plan by countries like Saudi Arabia and others as well. And we've seen that this is, of course, something in violation of international laws. Pakistan has also talked about this and has condemned this particular plan of action and has expressed solidarity with the people of Gaza and the people of Saudi Arabia as well. And we've also, of course, talked about how an extraordinary OIC session can be called in to discuss this matter. We have Egypt also hosting a very special session on this for Arab states on the 27th of February to talk about this serious issue. But what does that mean in terms of on-ground situation and in terms of the plan of action taken by these countries, of course, remains to be seen. So that is going to be our focus in the first segment of the show today. Our next one is going to take a look at what is going on in Libya, where another boat unfortunately has capsized, and a number of people, the numbers coming in are as high as 65, have lost their lives, including Pakistanis. And of course, emergency response teams are already in place, and there have been numbers that have been circulated within the embassies to locate the people and their bodies, and of course move forward with rescue efforts. But this is, of course, unfortunate in terms of what has happened previously as well, and how we move forward for, in detail for such situations in the future. That's going to be our focus in the second segment of the show today. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal. We've also been joined online by former Ambassador G.R. Baluch. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. And I'd like to start with you with reference to what we've seen, the very blatant statements coming in from Mr. Trump and Mr. Netanyahu. And we want to, of course, understand what exactly is the step forward when you have a genocide that is ongoing in Gaza, when you have a very fragile ceasefire in place, and when this is something that goes back decades, and then you have the leader of a superpower saying that they're going to own and take over Gaza, they're going to resettle the people of Palestine, and we have Netanyahu speak about how they should be forming a state within Saudi Arabia. And these are, of course, very, very powerful statements, and of course are outrightly speaking about international violations, and the fact that, of course, this is something that is very, very unacceptable to any sovereign country. So I want your take in terms of what that means in the ways the world is changing at the moment, with the leadership of these countries actually coming out and speaking about very blatantly doing something against international law.
Yes, Mariam, thank you. I think it's a very sad moment for the deteriorating situation in the so-called rule-based international order, when the head of state of a global prominent global power and its total they speak in these terms. It is basically reflection of hubris, complete totally disregard for the international laws and norms, and ignorance that reflects also ignorance of history and history. It's the way history itself moves forward, and total disregard and misunderstanding or not understanding of what Palestine Palestinian state or Palestinian entity means for the people of Palestine. And such a blatant statement coming in on the top of it when Netanyahu said it, that the Palestinian state should be in the Saudi Arabia. So I think it has correctly been condemned by Pakistan in very, very strong terms by our foreign minister. And also the entire world, if you look at it, European Union, United Nations, the Secretary General of the United Nations has said it. So I don't think that this statement, of course, we have to take it seriously because it comes from the President of the United States, and also that is being seconded by the lunatic regime of Israel. So because one can expect any mischief from them. But I think what has to be seen now is that how the world should respond and how the Muslim world should respond, how the Arabs should respond. I think the first response has come from the leaders. The King of Jordan has strongly condemned this. The Egyptian president has condemned very strongly. The Saudi government has condemned this very strongly. And many other Arab countries have done it. And I think, as you also mentioned in intro, that the Arab League is meeting shortly during this month. And I'm sure they're going to come up with a very, very strong statement. So one should likewise, hopefully that is some kind of a similar condemnation of this ridiculous statement would also hopefully emerge soon from the General Assembly in the UN. And I think there will be a violation of several agreements and also resolution of the UN where the two-state solution has been promised to them. And most of all, as we all have seen that for the last year and a half, the Israeli regime has been prosecuting a war of genocide. So should we take that now that Mr. Trump wants to be part of that genocidal intent? I mean, if one was to really see it from legally point of view, the U.S. president must rethink, the U.S. state must rethink what he is saying and what he is suggesting. So I think there is a huge danger if this is not checked. Not only that it's a danger for the Palestinian, but it's a danger for the regional stability. It's a danger for the oil market. It's a danger for the credibility of itself, of the U.S. itself as a prominent member of the Security Council, as a global power. So I think they have to rethink and hopefully tame their newly found hubris, which has come with this success in the victory or the election victory of Mr. Trump. And I'm pretty sure that with a strong opposition from the civil society, from the international community, from the Arab League, from the Muslim countries, and from the UN, hopefully, it will definitely be thrown into a insignificant statement into the dustbin of history. Yes, my Slara.
Faisal, I want your take on that, because while, of course, these condemnations are welcome and these sessions are welcome of these Arab states, and of course everybody is going to be speaking about how this is against international law. The UN, of course, has also very categorically said this. There is, of course, a lot else we know historically that actually functions in terms of the on-ground situation. And we have seen that the genocide, of course, is something unacceptable as well. But that is still something that is continuing. So I want to understand then what it means in particular, what exactly will be the way forward. And Farrukh, I'll actually take your opinion on this first in terms of what that means for the ways in which we can actually make a difference, or will that actually count when we have a blatant message coming in from the US president and then from Netanyahu as well, and the kind of actions we've seen over the past year or so. That, of course, is something that, while was condemned, still continued to happen.
Right, thank you very much, Sana. I think that at this moment I'm not going to actually start by passing any judgment. I'm just going to give you the maths and then help you understand the context, because there is a very crucial nuance that we might be missing and that nuance actually tells you who's playing what game.
Mm.
As of international relations or international rule-based order, I think it stood cancelled on 6th November of previous year when Donald Trump was he won elections fair and square. After that, of course, it was economic nationalism of the U.S. And given that America, a country like America, has a foreign debt of around 36 trillion dollars, that actually not foreign debt but total debt. That actually tells you where American interests or concerns are. At this moment, it seems that President Donald Trump is focusing on trying to maximize the U.S. leverage. He keeps on talking about
Right.
getting Greenland. Okay.
Right. We'll just have to take a quick short break, and I want you to hold that thought, so we'll come back right to it. Welcome back to the debate. We're, of course, taking a look at the ongoing situation in Gaza and Palestine. Of course, the statements coming in from Mr. Trump and Netanyahu regarding, of course, their plans of owning and taking over Gaza, which, of course, is giving a lot of condemnation from different countries around the world. And, of course, the UN has also issued statements regarding that. But, Farrukh, we were talking about how exactly that is actually going to pan out and what it's going to mean in terms of the ways that the international community can or cannot do anything about it, and what will be the future course of action when the leaders of different countries and, of course, indeed of a superpower are actually moving forward with such blatant statements.
Yeah, that was leading the some leading question. No,
Sure.
I was talking about something else at all, totally. So I'm going to help you remember that. We were talking about America and American president's point of view at this moment. Concerning the economic nationalism and its rationale. So at this moment, American president is focusing on America's total debt, which is $36 trillion, right? Which is not a small thing. It is crazy given that America is such a big powerhouse. So what he is now focusing on is maximizing the leverage that the country has. He talks about Canada being 51st state of America. He talks about Mexico also sharing burden in building the wall. He talks about Greenland potentially becoming America's part and also taking over Panama. So he is actually at this moment is talking about big banner ideas, but then he leaves it to the circumstances, and then the team around him keeps on building up on it, right? So he spoke about Gaza, and you have seen while he was talking about it, who was sitting next to him. Benjamin Netanyahu is a great actor, by the way. He is a very good actor, and all his smiles, all his enthusiasm actually hid something else. While Donald Trump might have said something, and he can be actually convinced the other way around, given that it all boils down to economy. And look at the cost of Slara, uprooting an entire population and taking them to another country and then creating a safe haven for them. So if you actually talk about only general numbers, there are 2 million people or more in Gaza. And if usually when Syrian refugees were going to Europe, the cost used to be $20,000 per person, right? But there they were being integrated or taken inside this society itself. There wasn't any idea of actually building a separate, safe haven. So if you look at the overall, uprooting and taking them to another country, and they're actually buying land, building cities. So the number would actually go beyond $400 billion. Now, you're looking at two countries that Donald Trump mentioned. One is Greece, one is Jordan. Both have pushed back on this idea. Of course, why wouldn't you? Because in the end, there are two aspects to it. When you talk about money is involved, Greece already, Egypt actually accepts a lot of foreign aid, and it is not financially viable. Otherwise, the other country is Jordan, which has a long history of Palestinians being problematic citizens of the country or residents of the country. So they were bound to actually push back. But that is the broad idea. If you talk about those countries actually selling their land, building cities, providing them safe haven, and then spending this kind of money, which is practically impossible, $400 billion, $600 billion, $1 trillion, that's impossible. Now, that is one part. The other part is rebuilding Gaza and actually making it Riviera of Middle East. So that would also involve similar kind of monies. So I don't think there's even a potential of that idea. But look at what Netanyahu did. Netanyahu initially was like very enthusiastic. Then somebody must have told him, what are you laughing about? Because in the end, your entire utility is that America's outpost is in the region is Israel. The moment America is present there personally, where their forces might be, where the government might be, then your relevance becomes almost gone, right? So then he started talking about American soldiers not being involved, and look at the, Israeli influence on the media. Media immediately started talking about not money. Monies are important, right? But they're talking about American soldiers, body bags in Gaza and all that. Why? Because then the Netanyahu can upsell his own credentials. Our soldiers will go, they will police, and you will sit there, right? That is again a non-starter. But in the end, because in the end it affects Netanyahu. Donald Trump might be in it for America. Netanyahu is in it only for Netanyahu because he is being prosecuted in courts and all, and he has tried to game his system only to stay in power and out of jail. But now what he does, he, instead of talking about Egypt or instead of talking about Jordan, he is talking about Saudi Arabia as the potential host of these people. Why? Because he wants this project to fail, but he does not want to take responsibility for it. He wants some Arab country to actually push back on this and take responsibility. That's how the cookie crumbles. And at this time, why is Saudi Arabia? When you talk about greater Israel map, you know, while Egypt and Jordan hardly are left with any land after that kind of, map being coming into reality, but it also actually affects Saudi lands. And Saudi Arabia, if you remember, has some history also, because recently what happened was that all this movement towards building a coalition to fight terrorism was because Houthis actually emerged in Yemen, a country which is a direct neighbor of Saudi Arabia, and the Houthi influence could be linked directly to Iranian influence. Similarly, Hamas and Hezbollah have also been in connection with them. You have seen how Hamas's leader was killed and where exactly he was. So Saudi Arabia will be concerned about this, and therefore Netanyahu actually is pushing these boundaries and taking this idea to the Arabs so that they can overreact or react per se. And then he becomes the good guy because he has been in Donald Trump's corner and the Arabs are not, right? It is just like that, Nazi general who actually, when he was facing a firing squad, actually converted to Judaism. And the moment they started actually firing and they were sentimental, now they are killing one of their own, he said, "Hail Hitler, here comes another one."
Right, absolutely. And Faisal, I want your take on this as well, because it's important, particularly now that these are the times that we're living in. And this is, of course, something that has been part of what we've understood, especially in the past year or so, something that has been put forward on social media as well. And we saw a genocide being broadcast live in all practical terms. And then, of course, given the fact that we have this particular statement coming in from the US president, we had, of course, a certain rhetoric pre-elections, and there's a rhetoric coming in now, and it's very blatantly offering a certain action plan, also giving no room for return. And that's, of course, concerning in terms of the, of course, very, very basic right of self-determination for the people of Gaza, and, of course, what they, of course, want to move forward in terms of the two-state solution. So when we take a look at this, and then the ways in which there is a lot of confidence in bringing in other countries in the plan, and then, of course, the ways in which we've seen Israel also talk about its own expansion, is this something that you think will not be seen through in terms of what has been said, or do you think that it is something that has the potential to actually be executed, while, of course, there are condemnations coming in, but this is a plan of action that has been put forward?
Yes, and obviously, if we talk about the current situation and the kind of statements which came out from the Trump's corner, of course, it is a situation in which the cat has simply jumped out, and that cat which has jumped out, it had alerted all of the nations, the Middle Eastern nations, and plus the powerful nations of the world, including China. And I think China and Saudi Arabia and the other Middle Eastern countries, they have rightly stated against this kind of menace which is coming from straight from President Trump. And same is the case with Pakistan. Pakistan has protested against this as well, and Pakistan, like always, will always stand with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is a brethren country of Pakistan, and whatever the challenges for Saudi Arabia are, Pakistan have always considered them as our own challenges, and they will always do. And when it comes to, of course, this particular statement which actually came out, to me, I think right after that, when the statements which came out from the other countries, there was a drawback for President Trump, and I think President Trump is sensing that he has to step back from this kind of statement, because this is leading towards being actively part of a genocide and a ethnic cleansing. This is actually an ethnic cleansing, and he is taking a lead in it. And he is even pushing Netanyahu behind him, and he wants to take a lead in it. When we talk about the analysis, the overall analysis, we shouldn't be forgetting that the coastal side, only 3 to 5 nautical miles inside the seas from Gaza, there is a drilling going on. And when we take the first inaugural speech, we remember he used the word drill baby drill. Maybe that drill baby drill extends towards Mediterraneans as well. Maybe that drill baby drill, he meant by this that he is going to take over the land in there in Gaza, and after that he's the one who's going to drill baby drill in there. And this is all about, once more, about hell lot of energy resource which is hidden in there, and which they don't want the Gazans to take a benefit from, and they themselves want to take a benefit out of it. And to Netanyahu, all is hunky-dory as long as America takes over that land, because if America takes over that land, by the 4 years, if the 4 years are gone, after that whoever's government is going to come, they are going to say, oh, it is too much a burden for you, you should, and they themselves would be saying that in the larger interest of the world and the universe, we want to step back from the other countries, and we want to contain ourselves to the American side. And here we go. I think the biggest power in the region that can control that volatile region is Israel, and we should be giving it back to Israel. Second, the other situation which I see is, as we know that Netanyahu, he's been coming up with the statements like, oh, Saudi Arabia should inhibit all of these Gazans in their own country. What the plan is, they want to actually push all of these people who are disgruntled, who have, of course, who have seen their elders killed in front of their eyes, the kids who are 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old today, in the time, by the time they are 18 or 20 or 22, they will be at the age where they will be forced to pick up the guns to avenge whatever has happened. Don't forget, more than 50,000 people have lost in these a year and a half. And when we talk about so many of them, they are missing, maybe they are dead as well, you know, in this crisis. And there are women, there are children, there are elderly, there are young, everyone has given life. And the ones who have given their lives, their loved ones will be waiting for the day when they come back and avenge the deaths that have been brought by the American bombs and by the hands, by the soldiers, the rogue soldiers of obviously you know, Israeli armed forces, IDF. And what they want to do is, what Netanyahu is suggesting is, okay, send them to Syria, send them to obviously Egypt, send them to elsewhere, and here we go, send them to Saudi Arabia as well, so that in couple of years' time, we keep on maintaining that, or there are people who are penetrating from Saudi Arabia to Israel, coming here and doing the activities, and they will, of course, false flag the terrorist activities at their land, and they will blame it to, oh, somebody came from Saudi Arabia, we have to do a surgical strike there. Don't forget, this kind of thing we have been seeing in India doing it, and they will do it. And we know that when Al-Julani came, right after that, they grabbed a huge chunk of land of Syria. They have been bombing the places, and what their plan is that in coming future, they, by sending all of these people there, they will be conducting surgical strike, and their the map they have been showing of the greater Israel, that greater Israel's dream, Netanyahu wants to see that happening. Netanyahu wants to see that happening very quickly, and this is the only way, that send all of the remaining people of Gaza to different countries, and then later on stage the false flags and start conducting your false flags. In the guise of false flag, you, if they ever had any chance of containing a defense force like Saudi Arabia is having, like Egypt is having, like other countries in the region they are having, try to conduct the surgical strikes and of course bust them all, and you're the only one who have the IDF, and along with the IDF you have lucrative American weaponry, and Americans are pouring in with the weapons, with the billions of dollars of weapons, and they are giving you a license to conduct any genocide, license to conduct any ethnic cleansing, and nobody would ever do anything against you. ICC did something, and of course they declared Netanyahu to be a war criminal. What is happening to ICC? All of the members of ICC, the ones who have been coming up with these these statements, all of them, they are being banned to come to America. Visas are being banned, and then later on, of course, their economic source or anything to do, or even the bank accounts, if ever existed in America, they are being, of course, freeze. So what it means? It means that they do not accept any authority in the world, and they want to give a chance to Israel to do whatever they want. And don't forget, there is, of course, news of a pager, a gold pager, given to Trump as a gift from Netanyahu. And what kind of gift that is? What does it suggest? It's when you give somebody a gift, especially related to your achievements, then a pager, they are considering this, it's a war crime, whatever they've done. And their war crime is being considered as an achievement. And that achievement is being shared with Trump, President Trump. And he is feeling proud that Netanyahu has given me this. What kind of world we living in?
I hope it doesn't explode.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Ambassador Saab, I want your take on this too, especially in terms of when we take a look at what the next steps are going to be and what is the way forward, and of course the role of the different countries involved. While of course Mr. Trump has referred to other countries such as Egypt and Jordan, there is of course a lot of concern around countries like the UAE and Bahrain that of course have normalized to a certain extent their ties with Israel. And while there was also reports coming in earlier of Saudi Arabia also following suit, we have a statement coming in from the kingdom categorically denying that. But I want your take on what that means then in the ways that the Arab world actually interacts with Israel, especially in terms of trade, in terms of finances, in terms of the ways in which there is a lot of interconnectedness of how the world is actually working. And while, of course, we have the Arab League meeting, or we have these countries putting forward their objections, and even if there's a strong statement coming out, what can be done in actual actions, and whether that is a real expectation from these Arab countries, because that hasn't happened in the past, and this is something that goes on without any hindrance or any change despite the situation.
Yes, and I think we'll have to take a dispassionate view of what is happening within US and what it intends to do. Yes, one thing we have seen, the common thread in statements of Mr. Trump, his more than 100, 200 executive orders that he keeps signing from morning, even during the travel in his plane, they all suggest that perhaps he aims to rewrite the rules for the world order or the global system, the way since the Second World War have been working. Yes, they have changed contours, that from bipolar to unipolar to now multipolar. And I think this reality, they have accepted it. The Secretary of State, he said it, the US Secretary of State, that we know that it is a multipolarity. It is not only the responsibility of the US to run this world. So whatever their objective, but I think they do understand, they do realize what is called the limits of the greater power, or the outstretch of the greater power. I'm sure our audience and some of our friends on the Berlin audience would have read the book by Mr. Paul Kennedy, The Great Power Empires. And it does mention one of the cause is the overstretch of a global power. It seems to me that US has realized that it has reached the breaking power in terms of its capacity to be the global power. So although the president of US is keeping a brave face, but it does tell us that how much polarized the US society is, how much polarized and fragmented the politics, the body politics of US is, and how fragile the economy is. And so I think they are saying goodbye to the hegemonic, whether it was a benign hegemon or it was a malignant hegemon. It is, I leave it to the interpretation, and it is left to the interpretation of each historian when he or she writes the history of the US as a hegemon. So, but so we have to understand the context of this change in the overall US self-realization and its future role that they visualize, or at least their elected leadership, which is now present, is in power. They see it. So I think what will happen, and I think that has to be realized by especially since you refer to the Middle Eastern and Arab and Muslim countries, they have to realize that those days.
Thank you very much, Ambassador J.R. Baluch, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. Unfortunately, we can't hear you at the moment anymore. Farrukh, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, regarding Paul Kennedy, because I've been reading him since I was yay big, right? So his essential thesis about imperial overreach is that when a country actually spreads itself too thin, that economically that becomes a burden, it actually starts failing. The example is USSR, or for that matter UK also before, when it was an empire. But the fact is, when you look at the reality right now, what Donald Trump is saying is that we are not going to actually take responsibility of anyone. You keep your problems, only be fair with us and make us rich, right? Technically speaking, in American point of view, and regardless of Gaza, whatever is happening in America, American media keeps on actually crying over it, but I think that he is on the money regarding how to improve the country. But when you talk about Middle East, the problem is Netanyahu, because Netanyahu's game has been that on one side he will keep on abusing America, on the other side he will also ensure that anger against America keeps on rising among Muslim countries, so that eventually he can always go to America and say, look, they are the ones that attack you, we are your allies, stand with us. So I think that that game was on, but right now, because he has actually mentioned Saudi Arabia particularly, it shows that he wants Trump's plan to fail, and he wants to actually not have any responsibility of that failure.
Right, absolutely. We're now going to move on to our next segment that takes a look at the very unfortunate incident of the boat capsizing in Libya. And of course, we have about 65 passengers, as the news are coming in, who have unfortunately lost their lives, including Pakistanis. And Faisal, I want your perspective on this, because we've unfortunately been hearing about these incidents for quite some time now. And there is so much that, of course, is being done with regards to rescue efforts. But at the end of the day, we still have people actually going ahead with these boats despite the risk involved. And there's so much related to migration that in itself causes a lot of problems. So what really is the way forward? And we're losing lives.
Unfortunately, you know, over the weekend, of course, I was in my hometown, and my hometown and the towns next to it, they are known for many of the people, many of the youthful people, they actually try these routes. And one of the journalists I came across yesterday came to meet me, Etisham Rathore. He told me, because he has been to all of these people whose sons, they have been a part of the previous, by the way, capsizing of this ship. Before that, there was another capsize, and in that, one from Kharia. There were two cousins who were in the same boat. One of them, he died, and they were from Kharia. And he was actually telling me the basic problem is, number one, of course, economic reasons. Number two, our youthful kids, when they are failing to perform in the education, they believe that there is no other way for them. The only way for them left is to reach to Europe somehow. And we don't have other mechanisms of technical educations and these kind of educations that can actually put our kids, if they are not performing well in the other studies, the mainstream studies, at least they have other ways of getting enhanced their skills or something like that, that can actually provide them with a better source of earnings in the society, number one. And number two, there are so many agents in these districts like District Gujarat, District Sialkot, District Mandi Bawaldeen, who keep on doing this, and somehow I think the authorities like FIA, Human Trafficking Control, they have to deep root their source within these these districts, and they have to catch all of these people who are involved in this business. And this is human trafficking. This is like you are simply sending them to death, because the kind of the boats, the nature of the boats, they are not ready to go.
Right.
They are, of course, very old ones, and it's the kind of people who have managed to reach there. Even they tell that if it was all the luck that they have reached Europe. Otherwise, I mean, the kind of
Right,
boat
absolutely.
they were in.
But what needs to be done about it? Farrukh, very quickly. We have very less time.
Hardly,
Yes.
hardly a minute. But of course, he's right about boats. If you look at these pictures, the human condition there is horrible, always. So who is going there, Sana? People who are really desperate to get out or leave the country. You know, I have heard reports that these people are kept in certain shoddy camps here on land before going to the boats, and they are told not allowed here on land to go to the washroom for hours, half a day, so that they can protect their self-control while sitting on those boats. So even when they reach their Sana, their life is always going to be horrible. So this is a huge case. I think the Prime Minister is focusing on this, doubling down on solving this problem. But in the end, you will have to take out every human trafficker in this country, and you'll have to fight them and make them examples so that this can never happen.
Right.
And then, of course, take care of the economic situation back at home, so desperation does not cause this kind of brain drain.
Thank you, Farrukh, and thank you, Faisal, for joining us in the debate as always. That's all that we have time for. We will now see you tomorrow.